Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a world that's been fundamentally well rewritten. We're exploring this really harrowing account of survival, a terrifying evolution, and the desperate search for hope in the ruins. Our source material today is incredibly vivid. It's excerpts from a first person narrative called The Whispering Hive, a Cordyceps apocalypse.
Hmm.
It tells the story of Elise. She was a baker, now she's a survivor, just trying to navigate a world consumed by this like insidious, evolving threat.
Yeah, and what's really compelling about this source, I think, is how it just throws you right into the sensory details of this collapsed world. You get the smells, the sounds, the just overwhelming dread. So our mission today is really to unpack Elise's journey, understand the terrifying nature of what the source calls the awakening, and get a real grasp on what this unique perspective tells us about adaptation, about resilience, when basically everything you know just crumbles.
Okay, so to really get this, to understand Elise's journey and just how terrifying the awakening is, we probably need to start right at the beginning. How did this initial whisper of a threat just escalate into a global roar?
Well, the source, it lays out this really subtle beginning. It talks about a virulent new strain of flu supposedly emerging from Southeast Asian agricultural regions. And initially, governments, medical professionals, they kind of downplayed it, brushed it off as just another aggressive virus mutation. Public health officials were all about emphasizing calm, right? Even when reports started coming in about unexplained aggression, people lashing out, biting, pundits were quick to jump in, calling it mass hysteria or delusional paranoia.
Right, that initial downplaying, those dismissals, it feels like they just blinded everyone to how fast things were actually moving. Elise describes being in her bakery kneading sourdough, of all things, when the screams started, and she calls them primal, guttural, a sound of pure, unadulterated savagery, so it wasn't really a slow burn then.
No, absolutely not. The source makes it clear the rupture was swift, overwhelming. The infection spread like a blight. A single bite, a scratch, that's all it took. Hospitals, they became these gruesome charnel houses, just awful places. Their lights blinking out one by one. News channels went from reporting information to just showing these final desperate testimonials before they went dark, too. The last thing Elise saw on TV, smoke rising from countless fires and that unmistakable shuffling tide of the infected filling the streets. She calls it an unstoppable ocean of the dead.
Wow. So when the floodgates really broke open, what was the immediate hit on society? How did it all fall apart?
It's just total, a complete societal collapse, according to the source. Governments just dissolved. International efforts failed completely. Supply chains fractured almost immediately. You had famine, unrest spreading everywhere, communication networks gone, plunging the world into these isolated pockets of just terror. The military was decimated. Their organized lines just melted away into desperate skirmishes, widespread desertion. Cities became death traps. People fled into the countryside, which wasn't much safer. And even things we take for granted, like GPS, started failing. Satellites decaying or maybe shut down, we don't know.
It's chilling, isn't it? This account really highlights how our modern world, it seems so robust, but it's built on these incredibly fragile systems. You pull out communications, supply chains, and the whole thing just unravels so fast. Shows you how thin that veneer of order really is. And right there, in that collapsed world, you see Elise's own transformation. It's stark. From a baker smelling of flour and cinnamon, she now smells, the source says, of fear and stale blood. She had to learn to be quiet, move like a ghost, scavenge, shoot, even kill. It's a brutal picture of just how quickly things declined. Okay, so the initial horror, the shambling infected, that's clear. But this deep dive shows something way more chilling. These things are evolving. Dr. Victoria Billings, another character, calls them the awakened. What's the most terrifying part of this evolution? Is it just that they're faster or something else?
Well, a key insight, and this comes from Dr. Billings in the science bit. The awakening virus, she says, is a mutated Cordyceps strain. Like those real-world fungi that take over insects. This one does it to humans.
Right.
It gets into the brain, makes new neural pathways, overrides consciousness, but keeps the body moving. Creepy stuff. But the real terror is the long-term infected, the awakened. They're getting faster, more aware. Billings actually saw them deliberately setting a distraction, trying to draw out defenders during an ambush. So it's really their emerging intelligence that ramps up the fear factor.
Right. And that connects back to something Elise experienced, that chittering sound she heard months ago in an electronics store. She just dismissed it, thought it was the building settling. But now, with what Billings knows, that sound means something much worse, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That leads to a really critical piece of the puzzle. Billings figures out that chittering is their main way of communicating. It's a complex system, she says. High-frequency clicks and low-frequency pulses.
Yeah.
The clicks are like biological sonar, lets them see in the dark by echoes. And the low-frequency hums, those travel further. They use them to coordinate movements, share information about prey, threats. She compares it to bat colonies or insect swarms, but on a macro scale, terrifyingly precise. Basically, they're thinking and reacting almost like one organism.
One organism. So not just mindless anymore. They can coordinate, plan, even anticipate movements. The source mentions them working together to bring down a reinforced security door.
Well, yeah.
That's a whole different level of threat.
Yeah.
We usually picture these things as just driven by instinct. How does this shift, from basic instinct to actual coordination change the game for survivors like Elise?
It changes everything. It makes them exponentially more dangerous. And it suggests something else too, the existence of a primary node. Think of it like a central hub, or maybe a queen bee, a particularly old or strong infected that acts as the center for this fungal network. It amplifies their collective intelligence, their communication range. Now, destroying it could cripple their coordination, sure, but it would also likely draw the entire local population right onto you, essentially suicide.
A death trap either way.
Exactly. And this whole evolution, this networked intelligence, it's a powerful insight, isn't it? That intelligence isn't just a human thing. It can emerge from collective systems, even biological ones like this fungus. Really challenges how we think about strategy awareness.
Definitely. And what about their other senses besides this? Echolocation.
Well, their sight is apparently poor, especially in bright light. Makes sense. But their hearing, incredibly acute. They can pick up the slightest sound, a rustle, even a breath. And maybe even more unsettling, their sense of smell is evolving. They can track people by scent now, distinguish living flesh even through heavy rain. The source says the smell of fear or sweat is a beacon to them now. Just awful.
This horrifying evolution, it sets the stage for Elise bumping into Dr. Billings in, of all places, a library. Amidst all these forgotten books, this chance meeting sparks this desperate, really terrifying new purpose. So what's Billings actually doing there?
She's trying to rebuild something. It's a specific kind of receiver capable of picking up very specific frequencies. She's chasing rumors, faint whispers on the airwaves, whispers of sanctuaries, fortified cities, underground bunkers, places where maybe some government or military remnants are still holding out. The broadcasts are faint, garbled, but she thinks some might be coming from as far as the British Isles, maybe Scandinavia. She's focused on amplifying these really low band frequencies. It's a long shot, clearly.
A long shot, needing specific parts, right? Old vacuum tubes, high-frequency transistors, rare earth magnets from pre-war speakers. Why that specific kind of old-school tech?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not just about what's lying around. Billings believes these older, tougher analog parts are the only things that can really cut through all the atmospheric noise, the apocalyptic static. They're better suited, she thinks, to pick up and amplify those faint, long-distance, low-band signals that newer, more delicate digital tech just can't handle anymore. And that's where Elise comes in. She remembers a place.
Right, the electronics store. Saturn.
Exactly. A pre-war electronics store on the other side of town, Grevenbreich. Elise thinks it could be a gold mine for exactly those components.
A gold mine, yes. But she also heard that chittering there. She saw the awakened moving with purpose, even coordinating breaking down a door. So it's not just a supply run, it's walking into a potential death trap. Maybe even a hive, like you said, where that collective intelligence is strongest. So what's the plan? How do you even attempt to get those parts from a place like that?
Well, it really forces them to think strategically, doesn't it? It's like a chess match against this intelligent swarm. The plan they come up with is meticulous. It tries to leverage the Awakened's weaknesses, like their poor eyesight in the dark. So night movement is key. But they have to be incredibly careful about noise because of the echolocation. Minimize their acoustic footprint, the source says. Rubber soles, rags wrapped around boots, that sort of thing. And then there's the smell. They plan to use scent-masking rotting flesh or local vegetation mixed with decayed animal matter, anything to throw off that evolving sense of smell.
Grim stuff.
Very. The approach involves detailed observation first. Watching the store for at least 24 hours, identifying patrol patterns, choke points. They've eyed a specific overgrown alley for a hidden approach. Once inside, speed is everything. Grab the target items, high-gain antenna, vacuum tubes, those powerful magnets, and get out. No browsing. And last resort, if they get cornered, Dr. Billings has some C4 charges. Not to fight, but to collapse a section of the building, create a diversion, buy time to escape. But they absolutely have to avoid destroying a primary node if they find one. That would just bring the whole hive down on them. suicide.
It sounds incredibly risky, a desperate gamble, really. But Elise agrees to do it, and then, just as they're about to set off, they find something new, something genuinely horrifying that suggests the enemy is evolving even faster than they thought.
Yeah, this is where it gets really chilling. They stumble upon an awakened inside a house. It's hunched over what looked like a television set, and the fungal growths from its head and arms, they're extending into the broken electronics. And worse, from its back, there's this thick, segmented stalk pulsing with a sickly green light stretching towards an antenna on the roof. Billings realizes it's broadcasting, she says. It's a localized relay, a new stage of development. The fungus is trying to expand its network, its communication range. It's not just receiving, it's actively trying to transmit its collective consciousness to assimilate everything.
Assimilate everything.
Yeah. And the hum intensifies. There's answering chittering from outside. Billings knows they're evolving faster than I feared.
It raises this truly terrifying possibility, you know? If this infection can basically teach an organism to coordinate, adapt, even broadcast its mind, what happens if nature itself starts learning our tricks? Wow, okay, so beyond the awakened themselves, who are clearly terrifying enough, the source also dives into the other costs, right? The pervasive, insidious ways this apocalypse just fundamentally changes reality and what it does to the survivors. What are these sort of silent terrors?
Yeah, it's not just about the monsters. What really comes through is the psychological weight, the constant pressure. There's this absence of safe spaces. Your home isn't safe. It's a potential tomb. Even just sleeping is a dangerous gamble.
Yeah.
Then there's the physical grind, constant agonizing hunger and thirst. Every mouthful of food is a hard-won victory. But maybe the most corrosive thing is the breakdown of trust, that silent, ever-present threat of betrayal. Other survivors aren't necessarily allies. They're often just another danger. And that leads to this profound isolation, this paranoia, where the rule is trust no one.
That paranoia, it's not just about staying alive, is it? It feels like it eats away at something fundamental. The ability to connect, to form communities, leaves you utterly alone, even if you're near others.
Exactly. It's an internal rot, just as dangerous as the external threats.
So the physical world is literally broken, and the people in it are becoming broken too. And the environment itself, it's turned hostile in new ways.
Right. Nature is reclaiming things, but not in a gentle way. The ruined infrastructure means collapsed roads, unstable buildings everywhere, death traps. And the weather. What used to be an inconvenience is now potentially lethal. A cold snap means hypothermia. A heat wave, dehydration, relentless rain brings sickness, makes everything harder, more miserable. Every step outside is this complex calculation against unseen traps, falling debris. The world itself is an adversary now.
And then, almost cruelly, there's the return of hope, which the source frames as terrifying in its own right.
Yeah, it's a powerful point. For months, Elise saw hope as a dangerous illusion, a weakness. Just accepting the end felt easier, safer somehow. But now, with Billings' mission, with this faint whisper of sanctuaries on the airwaves, this fragile, dangerous ember had been rekindled, and that resurgence of hope is terrifying for her. Why? Because suddenly, there's something left to lose. It adds this new layer of vulnerability, and it sets up the possibility of a whole new kind of despair if this last desperate gamble failed. Hope, in this world, it's not simple comfort. It's a double-edged sword. Hashtag outro.
So where does this leave us? What does it all mean? This deep dive into the Whispering Hive, it really gives us this chillingly intimate look at an apocalypse driven by this evolving Cordyceps. It's a story, yeah, about survival against insane odds, but also about humanity's capacity to adapt, both the amazing resilience and the really brutal compromises people have to make.
Exactly. And if you connect it to the bigger picture, this narrative really pushes us, I think, to reconsider what intelligence even is, beyond just us humans. It shows how it can emerge in these terrifying, unexpected collective forms. It hammers home just how fragile our complex modern societies really are. And it highlights the profound cost, the often hidden cost, of knowledge, of hope, when you're staring down ultimate horror. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, that the worst terror isn't always loud and obvious. It can be silent, insidious, and horrifyingly intelligent.
And as Elise and Dr. Billings head off on this incredibly perilous mission into the heart of what might be a hive, facing an enemy that can apparently anticipate your movements and learn from its mistakes, it leaves us with this really provocative thought, doesn't it? If an infection can teach an organism to coordinate, adapt, even broadcast its collective consciousness, what other unforeseen horrors might we face if nature itself starts learning our tactics, mirroring our own ingenuity for its own, well, dark evolution? You've been on a deep dive with us. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking the big questions.